I have had the really unique opportunity of growing up in the church my whole life. I was raised by parents that are in ministry. They have a genuine love for the Lord and for others. My dad's a pastor, and the older I get, the more I realize how rare my story really is. It's honestly such a blessing now to have a testimony that is far from perfect, but is one where I could say, hey, I am evidence that growing up in gospel-centered community, growing up in the church can really be an amazing thing. And I pray my kids have the testimony that I have someday. But the church, at the same time, has so many just scars and imperfections, but I am living proof once again that the church is a gift. And it can be really hard to be a part of the church, but it's also been so good. And amidst growing up and serving in the church, I, like so many others, have questioned over time, like how we go about doing things. Is this really how we're meant to be defined? And you could list things, the large stages, the Sunday morning gatherings, the weeknight smaller gatherings, the youth group, and the big buildings, the loud music, the tension-grabbing sermons. Like, I'm literally part of the problem at times, I think. I'm the guy up there with the guitar who's asking to turn me up even louder. And it's like, but it's not about me. And so there's all these things. I could go on and on with this in this conversation about how we do church. And you can look at the early church and see how small the buildings were they probably met in. And it's like, man, it might be way different than how we do it today in 2023 in the Bible Belt. But the crazy thing is, 2020, COVID hit. And for this season, so many of us could no longer gather again face to face. And honestly, at least for me personally, for my faith community, I think it changed everything. And why is that? Because we were forced to no longer go to church, but rather be the church. And I saw something amazing that happened. We opened up our homes again. We called members of our church to check on them, to see how they were doing. We shared with those in need. We prayed for each other. We cared for the sick. We got to know our neighbors again, which is just mind-blowing. We didn't go to church, we were the church. And I think in that season of quarantine, as brutal as it was, at least for my family and my church, we looked a little bit more like the early church in Acts 2 did. And here's what they did in Acts 2, verses 45 through 47. It says they began selling their property and their possessions, and they were sharing them with all as anyone might have need, day by day, continuing with one mind in the temple and breaking bread from house to house. They were taking their meals together with gladness and sincerity of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord was adding to their number day by day those who were being saved. So my just challenge to myself and to you as well is whether your church seats thousands or you're a part-time pastor setting out and picking up a few chairs at your local YMCA every Sunday morning, the goal is the same: to tell of and live out the gospel, to go and make disciples. And the longer I'm in it, honestly, the more I'm convinced the former is no greater than the latter. The big is no better than the small, and vice versa. The Lord is pleased with and uses them both. Hebrews 10, 24 through 25 commands us to consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching, literally the day when Jesus calls us home. And just like the church did in Acts 2, and just as we were forced to do in early 2020 amidst this crazy global pandemic, unprecedented times, let's rise up, let's be the church. Let's not only tell of the gospel of God, but let's share our lives as well.